Welcome to my channel. My name is Ria, and in this video we are going to talk about the lunar eclipse happening on 15th May or 16th May 2022 depending on your location. But before we begin, I request you to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you can be notified every time I post a video. And on my channel I post weekly horoscopes, new moon horoscopes and full moon horoscopes. You can watch those if you are interested. And on my Instagram I put out a daily energy post, so if you're interested you can check that out as well. So let's talk about this full moon lunar eclipse happening in the sign of Scorpio. Now Pacific time, this eclipse is going to happen on Sunday 15th May, but for most of the world this is going to happen on 16th May, Monday. So let's talk about this eclipse. Now eclipses, generally speaking, are very karmic in nature, right? They bring about fated events, karmic events. And since April 30th or 1st May, again depending on your location, we've been in a very karmic zone, a very fated zone. And that's because on that date, 30th April, 1st May, we had a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Taurus, and that started this 2-week period, almost 2-week period of an extremely fated karmic destined energy. So this period between eclipses is where destined events take place, karmic events take place, fated events take place. Usually this period between eclipses brings about changes, it brings about events. So that's what an eclipse does. And eclipses also, they can speed up time, right? They can speed up events. If something was meaning to happen and that still hasn't happened, an eclipse can make that happen. So that's what an eclipse does. And eclipses are very emotionally charged, right? So it's not the best time to take concrete decisions. It's not the best time to react impulsively, especially on the day of the eclipse, around the days of the eclipse. So this is a full moon lunar eclipse, which means that it is more about emotional release. A full moon lunar eclipse brings with it emotional release. It is considered a completion point of something. It is considered a culmination point of something, since it's a full moon lunar eclipse. So a full moon lunar eclipse, I'll place it on the chart and then we'll talk more about that, is when the moon and the sun make an opposition. That's a full moon, right? And what makes it an eclipse is when it happens next to the nodes, the north node and the south node. And the nodes, the lunar nodes of the moon, the north node and the south node, are extremely karmic, and that is why an eclipse is karmic. Eclipse energy also stays with us for a much longer time, at least 6 months. So the energy comes in, right? Especially with the new moon solar eclipse that we had on 30th April. But we work on that energy for 6 months. So it stays with us for a while. And that's what an eclipse is, a karmic event, a fated event. It can bring things into our lives. It can take things out of our lives. Usually eclipses bring changes that are fated. And since this is a full moon eclipse, it's about release, it's about endings, it's about completions. And this eclipse is happening at 25 degrees of Scorpio, right? So if you are familiar with your chart, look for the Taurus Scorpio axis, 25 degrees. Those houses, that's where you'll feel the change, that's where you'll feel this energy. And the sign of Scorpio is a sign that is about transformation. So this eclipse can bring about a lot of transformation. We can release things, we can end things that lead to a lot of transformation. And the most basic theme of this eclipse is about transforming, whether that's an ending, whether that's a beginning, or whether that's something else, right? It's about transforming. And the sign of Scorpio right here is also about healing. It's the healing that we receive when we release a lot of things, right? It's catharsis, it's transformation, it's spiritual transformation. And Scorpio is where we find hidden things. So in the sign of Scorpio, an eclipse can really bring to light some hidden information or some truth or some emotions that have been buried deep inside us and that need to be released. So a lot of focus on transforming, a lot of focus on hidden things coming to light, whether that's information, whether that's an emotion, a lot of focus on emotional release, especially because this is a full moon lunar eclipse. So that's what an eclipse in the sign of Scorpio brings, right? Now, the most important aspect this eclipse is making. So we'll talk about the aspects now, and I want to talk about three important things. Is a square to Saturn, 90-degree angle with both the sun and the moon. And what is Saturn? Saturn is decisions. Saturn is our material reality, right? It's the ruler of this material reality. Saturn is structure. Saturn is giving structure to things. Saturn does things for the long run. But Saturn energy can feel challenging at times. And this eclipse is in a square to Saturn. So what this means is, before that, Saturn is also the planet of karma, right? And it's now aspecting the nodes, extremely karmic points. So this eclipse, yes, eclipses generally are karmic, but this eclipse is more karmic because Saturn is squaring the nodes. Saturn is squaring this eclipse. So the most important thing is that this is an extremely karmic eclipse. And with the square to Saturn, what this can mean is also we might be required to really streamline things in our lives, right? Whether that's by giving structure to something in our lives, right? Perhaps something that we've been thinking about. And now is the time to give it structure. Now is the time to take that decision. Now is the time to get rid of things, right, that are not in your long-term path, in your long-term vision. So this is that eclipse where we will be asked to maybe do things seriously, decide things seriously, streamline things, give structure to things that we have been thinking about. It's not new. We have been thinking about these things. So finally give those things a structure. So that's what could happen. And Saturn is also the planet of limitations and restrictions. And what this could also mean is that while we are asked to give things a structure, right, while we are asked to decide and streamline and define for the long run with a long-term vision in mind, we're also asked to work with certain limitations and restrictions, because Saturn can bring that. Saturn can bring this feeling of feeling stuck. It can bring this feeling of feeling restricted and limited. But we have to work with Saturn. We have to work with those limitations, work with those restrictions, and work with that feeling of feeling stuck, because actually we may not be stuck, right? We may be feeling stuck, but we're not really stuck, because Saturn is the one that puts things in order, right? It really puts things in order. Saturn likes structure, it likes order, it likes discipline, and it likes to reach the top. So that's what Saturn is helping us do. But we will be required to define things and streamline things. And all of this will need to be in line with our long-term vision and our long-term path. So that's what this aspect to Saturn means, and this aspect is extremely karmic, right? Extremely karmic. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is that the eclipse here is in a sextile with Pluto, right? Pluto is sextiling the moon and it is trining the sun. Positive aspects. And Pluto here rules the sign of Scorpio, where we have the eclipse. So Pluto is making a harmonious aspect with this eclipse, and Pluto is the planet of transformation, right? It rules Scorpio. So in many ways, Pluto is everything that Scorpio is. And Pluto is transformation, it's catharsis. Pluto really transforms something inside out, right? It's not a little transformation, it's a big, major transformation. And why does Pluto do that? Pluto wants us to release, it wants us to purge, it wants us to evolve and grow spiritually. Scorpio is the sign where we have the transformation of the Scorpion into the rising Phoenix, right? So that's what Pluto likes to do. It really likes to take something, a part of our lives, and transform it inside out. So transformation is extremely highlighted on this eclipse, and this is a positive aspect with Pluto, right? So the transformation, the healing, the release, those processes might not feel that difficult because Pluto is helping us. It's helping us do these things without too much stress. What we might feel stressed about is Saturn here, right? The need to decide, the need to streamline, the need to work, the need to be disciplined, the need to work with restrictions and limitations. This is what might stress us. But Pluto is there supporting us, saying, okay, release. Let the information come about. What's the information? What are your fears also? What fears do you need to overcome? All that Pluto work will not feel that challenging. So that's the aspect. And Scorpio here is also a very relationship oriented sign, right? It's about intimate relationships. Libra here is about legal relationships, and Scorpio is the intimate part of relationships. So that's also highlighted on this eclipse, relationships. And the next aspect I want to speak about, let me clean up the chart, is that Mars and Neptune, both of them are trining the moon, positive, sextiling the sun, right? So this is another positive aspect. And Mars and Neptune are conjunct, right? Mars and Neptune are conjunct. So when Mars and Neptune conjunct, we can face confusion, right? We can face confusion about what to do. So that is possible. And Mars, honestly speaking, really does not feel comfortable in the sign of Pisces, which means it does not work there, which means since Mars is the planet of taking action and getting things done, and it's conjunct Neptune, bringing confusion to that, what to do, what action to take, while Mars is not in the best place. And what all this means is that we might be hesitant, right? Or we might be a little slow to take action, or we might feel slightly confused. So it's a mixed bag, this eclipse. It's a mixed bag because Saturn here, it likes to decide. It really likes to decide things. This is it. This is how it's going to be. It's for the long run, and that's final. That's Saturn. But Mars and Neptune together, there can be confusion. Okay, you know what? I think I'll decide this, but how do I go about it? Is this the right thing to decide? I'm not sure. So that confusion aspect can happen. But this aspect of Neptune and Mars is making a positive aspect with the eclipse. So in many ways, it is supporting that eclipse, right? It is supporting that eclipse. So we might feel confused temporarily because Mars here is going to move on, and then we might find more clarity on what action to take and what to do. So that's that. And since Neptune is there, another aspect, another manifestation of the Mars-Neptune aspect is a lot of energy. Mars is also our energy when it comes to spiritual pursuits, Neptune, right? So we have that also. And Neptune in a positive aspect to the nodes also means that there's a spiritual element, there's a fated element to all this because Neptune is the higher realms. And let me put all of this together rather than breaking it down separately. So what this eclipse can bring is a lot of transformation, right, in the sign of Scorpio. It can be focused on any area of our life, but relationships, especially intimate relationships, are highlighted. And it's also an eclipse that will ask us to do a lot of release. And in a square to Saturn, that need to structure things, right, that need to streamline things or take decisions or be serious is there. And the transformation might not feel that difficult. Information can come about that can help us transform. We can release things that we've held on to for a long, long time. But there might be a little confusion on what action to take or what to decide. And there is a spiritual element to all this, right? There is, although eclipses by themselves are fated karmic. So that's the eclipse in a nutshell. And the last time we had eclipses in the Scorpio-Taurus axis was between 2012 and 2014, right? So something from then might come up as well. for review, for closing out, for releasing, because this is a full moon lunar eclipse, so that might happen as well. And the nodes were we had the north node in Scorpio back then, right? And we had the south node here. So the nodes were reversed, but the eclipses were on this axis. So between 2012 and 2014, something from your life back then you might be closing out or completing or, you know, finishing up or taking forward even. But maybe something connected to back then might be connected to now. So I just thought I'd mention that. And let me see if I missed out on anything. Yeah, I have. So let's talk about this. Now, on this eclipse, right, we also have Chiron and Venus conjunct. It's not really aspecting the eclipse as such, but it's happening, right? It's happening. And Venus is our relationships. It's primarily our relationships. It's our finances as well. And Venus here rules the sign of Taurus. And we have this eclipse on the Scorpio-Taurus axis. So Venus is important. And Venus just conjuncted Chiron. And this is an aspect that can really make us face the pain that we have, the wounds that we have, because Chiron is the wounded healer, right? It heals by making us face that pain or that wound. So prior to this eclipse or even on the eclipse, we might be feeling maybe not the best. Maybe we might be feeling something from the past come up, you know, or some deep emotion coming up. And this could very well be connected to our relationships or our finances or even our self-worth. Or Venus is a lot of things, right? Or our values. Something might be making us feel a little, okay, I'm not good enough. Or, you know, a wound from the past might come back to make us feel that pain again. And the goal is to heal from that. So that is also happening on this eclipse. So I'll sum up this eclipse for the last time, and I would say that this is an eclipse that is extremely transformative, right? It is a completion point. It is a big release point. Something from the past between 2012 and 2014 can come back up for review, for letting go, closing out, or just, you know, to process again and let go of. And there is a need to structure things in our lives, to streamline things in our lives. And although there is that need to structure things and streamline things and decide things and work hard, right, there might be an element of confusion as well. And anyway, it's not best to decide on an eclipse. So sit on that energy, the confusion will clear, and then maybe, you know, streamline, structure things. But a lot of emotional release and a lot of transformation. And this can even tie back to the month of November, right? 2021. Because in the month of November, we started a transformation in our personal lives in some way. And perhaps what we are completing is also tied back to that month of November in some ways. It's not necessary, it might happen. So some ties to the years between 2012 and 2014, some ties to November 2021, and things completing, things releasing could be wounds from 2012, 2014 releasing themselves now, right? After we take one last look at them, Venus conjunct Chiron. Or it could be something else from the past coming back up. I don't really know, but something can come up from back then. And something can perhaps complete itself that began in the month of November 2021. Not necessary, but it can. And that's the eclipse in a nutshell. So I hope you enjoyed this video, but before I finish, I will pull a few cards for the eclipse and then we'll close it out. But as a closing note, right, eclipses don't necessarily feel easy. Eclipses are about emotional release, and that is not negative, right? If we know the energy, we can handle it better. Eclipses bring about transformation, and that's a good thing. Eclipses are fated, but since eclipses are very emotional periods, why are they emotional? Because an eclipse is related to the moon, right? When the sun and moon, either new moon or full moon, that's when an eclipse happens. And an eclipse happens when it's next to the nodes of the moon. And what is the moon? The moon is our emotions. So eclipses are very emotionally charged times. They're very karmic times as well, but very emotionally charged. And that's why it's not best to decide or react on an eclipse. So just be mindful of these energy, and especially on a full moon eclipse where emotions are running high and in the sign of Scorpio. That is a very, very intense energy. It's really best to just take it easy on those days. It's not negative, but take it easy on the day of the eclipse. And I'll pull a few cards now. Relationships, and I think I pulled this for the weekly, the week of the eclipse, if I'm not mistaken. I'm attracted to those people who serve my higher good. And what is Scorpio? Scorpio is the deep, intimate relationships we have. Libra is the legal ones, right? Spouse, business partner, mother-in-law, father-in-law. But Scorpio is where we get intimate, right? It's that deep connection that we have with someone else. And this is referring to that relationship. And it says, I'm attracted to those people who serve my higher good. Perhaps this letting go is intimately tied to relationships, right? And it's not necessary. These are active relationships in our lives. Like I said, eclipses are not standalone events, right? Eclipses happen in the same signs after a few years, and usually they bring up what happened the previous time. And the last time the eclipses happened in the Scorpio-Taurus axis, although the nodes were reversed, was between 2012 and 2014. Now, this could be a letting go of some relationship that might have hurt you, or some pain you might have felt back then connected to a relationship, because the planet that rules relationships, Venus, right, is conjunct Chiron. We are facing that pain of relationships in some way. Some of us are. And this is saying I'm attracted to those who serve my higher good. So perhaps this is a lot to do with relationships. Could be a relationship from the past that's already ended, but we have that pain inside us, right? Scorpio. Scorpio is where the hidden stuff, the buried stuff comes out. So it could be that final release, letting go point of perhaps something between 2012, 2014 that didn't work out. And now we are healing from it. See, and that's not a negative thing, but I will still say eclipses are emotionally charged because it's not an easy thing to heal from that. Revisit those memories, think about it, say, oh yeah, I don't feel anything anymore, and heal from it. That takes work, but a lot of focus on relationships, because I had never pulled this card before my last video, and now I've pulled it twice. So a lot of focus there. Okay, let's go with this again. Purpose. I know what I'm here to do, and perhaps this eclipse can maybe help us connect with our purpose, right? Because when we really dig deep into ourselves, in our psyche, because Scorpio is also a psychological mind, it's the sign of psychology, the 8th house, right? Psychological stuff. It's also the deep stuff. So when we bring that to the surface, right, we might be able to connect with our purpose. Because for me, when that happened to me, when I really had to bring everything to the surface, and that happened like in the past 3-4 years, it was not an easy process, but by bringing those things to the surface, I could release them, and that helped me connect with my purpose. And it says, I know what I am here to do. So perhaps something about finding a purpose, digging really deep, right? Digging really deep. Because Scorpio is not a superficial sign. It's not a superficial energy. It's about the depth as deep as you can go. So when we do that, right, we can connect with our purpose. And perhaps this transformation that is happening is so that we can connect with our purpose. Let's go with one more card. going forward. And I think this eclipse will maybe, okay, I think this eclipse, what this is saying is that going forward, we might be able to connect with our purpose better, because this eclipse will help us release a lot of things. It'll help us give structure to a lot of things, Saturn, right? Decide a lot of things for the long run, right? For the long run. When we go forward, right? When we go somewhere, when we think of the future, it's a long-term vision. So perhaps what this is saying is that this decision, this structure to things that we might be required to do with the square to Saturn, right, is to help us go forward. Pull one more card and then we'll close it out. Care. It says be gentle with yourself. And yeah, I agree, be gentle with yourself around the eclipse. Because eclipses, I'm not saying it's negative, I'm just saying that eclipses are emotionally charged points, and that's how it is, right? So we must be gentle with ourselves on eclipses. So yeah, and I think that sums it up. I'll show you the cards once again. A lot of focus on relationships. I've never pulled this card, and I've pulled it twice. One for the weekly, the week of the eclipse, I believe, and one now. And Scorpio, Libra is legal relationship. Scorpio is that deep, deep spiritual connection, right? So something about that, something about healing from that, letting something go. And this need not be an active relationship in your life. It could be something from the past that you need to let go of. And purpose, perhaps the changes, perhaps the structure that we are making, right, building right now, the decisions, the square to Saturn is going to help us align more with our purpose. And think of the long run. Think of the long run, where you want to be in the long run. Saturn is for the long run. And be gentle. Take it easy. Right? Everything will happen. Everything will happen. The decisions, the structure, the everything. But around the eclipse, just soak the energy, let it sink in, and be gentle with yourself. Rest. Oh, that's the wrong card. Rest. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my weekly now. Bye.